was late. Too late. Ethan had never seen the station this empty before. The cold steel benches gleamed under the flickering fluorescent lights, casting eerie, shifting shadows along the tiled floor. A dull hum filled the air, silent, yet deafening in the emptiness. He shivered. Something felt wrong. A distant train horn echoed through the hollow station, and moments later, the last train of the night pulled in. The headlights cut through the darkness, blinding for just a moment before the automatic doors slid open with a slow, hesitant hiss. Ethan hesitated before stepping inside, and then the doors slammed shut behind him. Inside, the train was dimly lit, too dim. The yellowish glow from the overhead lights cast long, unnatural shadows across the floor. The seats were filled with passengers. Yet, something was off. They sat unnaturally still, heads bowed slightly, hands resting stiffly in their laps. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Ethan moved down the aisle, looking for a seat. But as he walked, a chill ran down his spine. Something was wrong with these people. None of them were blinking. His breath hitched. Maybe they were just asleep. Maybe he was just exhausted. He took a seat anyway, gripping the metal pole beside him as the train lurched forward. And then the outside world changed. Through the window, the familiar city streets began to blur. Buildings warped. Streetlights melted into streaks of red. The usual tunnels never came. Instead, the landscape outside was wrong. Endless rows of jagged, shadowy figures stretching toward a blood-red sky. Ethan's stomach twisted. This wasn't the right route. This wasn't the city. He turned to the passenger beside him, an elderly woman wrapped in a tattered shawl. Her frail hands gripped the fabric as she sat motionless, eyes locked on the floor. Swallowing hard, Ethan whispered, "Excuse me, do you know where this train is headed?" No response. Her lips parted slightly, and that's when Ethan saw her eyes. Pure black, like deep pools of ink. His chest tightened. His hands felt clammy. A cold sweat broke across his forehead. Slowly, he turned to the man sitting across the aisle, a businessman in a clean-cut suit. "Sir, where are we going?" For a moment, the man didn't react, and then his lips curled upward. A smile, but not a normal one. He stretched and stretched and stretched far too wide for a human face. His skin cracked at the corners of his mouth, revealing jagged, uneven teeth. Ethan's breath came in short gasps. This isn't real. But the train was speeding up, and the passengers, they were all looking at him now, their heads twisting in unnatural, bone-cracking angles, their grins growing wider. The lights flickered once, twice, and then the entire train plunged into darkness. A deafening silence filled the air, and then a sound. A low, crackling voice echoed through the train's speakers. Distorted, broken, unintelligible, static, whispering, 1,000 voices overlapping. Ethan lunged for the emergency stop lever, but it wasn't there. His pulse pounded in his ears. The walls of the train rippled, bending like liquid metal. The grinning passengers began to rise, their fingers twitching, their bodies moving in eerie synchronization. He turned and ran. He shoved open the heavy door at the end of the train car and stopped, dead. The next car wasn't a normal passenger compartment. It was a corridor, a long, dimly lit hallway, stretching infinitely in both directions. The walls pulsed, like living flesh, and the whispers, they were everywhere. "Turn back. Don't let it take you. You're already too far." His breath came in ragged gasps. He turned back, the door was gone. A shadow loomed at the far end of the corridor. It had no face, no form, just an abyss of crawling darkness. swallowing the flickering lights as it moved closer. The whispers grew into screams. The train rocked violently, and Ethan was thrown to the ground. He scrambled to his feet, his heart hammering, his mind screaming. There had to be a way out. And then a door. Up ahead, a glowing red exit sign. He sprinted for it, shoving against the metal, pounding his fists. "Let me out. Somebody help me." The door burst open and he fell. He wasn't inside the train anymore. He wasn't anywhere. An endless void stretched around him. No ground, no sky, just nothing. The whispers stopped. A silence heavier than death pressed against his ears. And then, a voice, deep, hollow, crawling inside his skull. "You were never meant to leave." The train's horn blared through the emptiness. As Ethan fell into the abyss,